All right, I want to thank everybody for coming out to the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners 2018 Reorganization Meeting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and now we will do the oaths of office to the new commissioners and our treasurer. Your Honor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard, my name is Ann Osborne. I'm a common pleas court judge, and I live here in the community, and it's my honor and my pleasure this evening, as it has been in the past, to administer oaths of office to our newly elected public servants in order of their election, or pardon me, in order of their the number of the ward that they live in and represent. So we'll begin with Mr. Booker. Rich Booker? Please bring forward anyone who would be accompanying you.
I'm bringing forth my lovely wife here. And I also just wanted to show everyone that this is my great-grandfather's Bible from Reverend Horace Fuller, who died in 1915. So this is a 1878 Bible, which we used last time we did this.
Family or
That's right.
All right.
Raise
Raise your right hand, please.
Okay. Wait for John to get back.
And repeat after me. I, Richard F. Booker,
I, Richard F. Booker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township.
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township,
And I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
as Commissioner of Radnor Township
as Commissioner of Radnor Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity. So help me.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Twice.
I will need to,
3 times, I think so.
well, we need to sign?
Oh, do I need to sign right now?
Yes, you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, it's my pleasure to administer the oath of office to Lisa Borowski. Right, and would the family members of Ms. Borowski please come forward?
All right, turn around. There you go. Got it.
Okay, please introduce your family members.
This is my mother, Kathy Chanchuli, my husband, Mark Borowski, my son, Ryan Borowski. My dad is back there taking pictures, Frank Chanchuli, and my son, Justin Borowski, back there.
All right. Please place your hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Lisa Borowski,
I, Lisa Borowski,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township.
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township.
And I will discharge the duties of my office
And I will discharge the duties of my office
as Commissioner of Radnor Township
as Commissioner of Radnor Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I need to sign.
You do need to sign this. And next, it's my honor to administer the oath of office to Mr. Abel, Jacob Abel. Good evening. Would you introduce your family and the person to hold the Bible for us?
This is my wife, Christy, my oldest son, Noah, Elijah, Benjamin, and Adam. And Benjamin, I think, is holding the Bible tonight, correct?
Well, they could all hold it if they'd like to.
Yeah, we've had that discussion. You guys all want this? Ben, come here.
Very fine. All right, please repeat after me. I, Jacob Abel,
I, Jacob Abel,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township.
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township.
And I will discharge the duties of my office
And I will discharge the duties of my office
as Commissioner of Radnor Township
as Commissioner of Radnor Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right. And finally, it's my pleasure this evening to swear in the new treasurer of Radnor Township, Ms. Catherine Gartland. And so, please place your hand on the Bible and repeat after me. I, Catherine Gartland,
I, Catherine Gartland,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township,
and the Home Rule Charter of Radnor Township.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
And I will discharge the duties of the office
of Treasurer of Radnor Township
of Treasurer of Radnor Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations. I need you to sign this. I'll take it. Thank you. All right. And finally, I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners and all of the newly elected and affirmed electees for the honor and the pleasure of being here tonight. So congratulations, and wish everyone the best of luck.
Well, Your Honor, I think I speak for everybody when I say thank you for handling this for us every year whenever it's necessary, so masterfully and so nicely. So thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so our next order of business tonight is election of President of the Board of Commissioners. In order to formally handle that without, yes? Oh, I'm sorry. And at this point, is Lieutenant Block, or is Deputy Block here?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, permission to retire the colors?
Absolutely.
All please rise for the retirement of the colors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so the next agenda item is the election of our board president. Since we do not currently have a president of the board or a vice president, in order to handle the election process for president, we need to elect a president pro tem. So at this point, I'd ask if there are any nominations for president pro tem.
Luke Clark, nominated by Richard Booker.
Second. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, then I will call the vote. All those in favor of Luke Clark as president pro tem for the purpose of election of president, please say aye. Aye. All right, motion passes 6-0. All right, so at this point, I will open up the nomination process for president of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners. Are there any nominations? Are there any other nominations? And is there a second?
Second.
All right, are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, we'll close the nomination process. All those in favor of Lisa Borowski as president of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners, please say aye. Aye. That passes 6-0. Lisa, you are president of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners. At this point, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke, and thank you, everyone. Okay, bear with me. So next on our agenda is the election of our vice president. Do I have any nominations for vice president of the Board of Commissioners?
I'll nominate Luke Clark.
Do I have any seconds?
Second.
Okay, I hear a second first from Commissioner Booker. Okay. Do I do?
Are there any other nominations?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are there any other nominations? Okay. With that, we will close the nominations. Do we have to have public comment?
Yes, public
Okay.
comment on that.
All right. Is there any commissioner comment? Any staff comment? Any public comment?
Hi, Dan Sherry, Wayne. So public comment on this, but no opportunity for public comment on the selection of president?
I'm sorry, Dan, I called the vote a little quick.
I know, it's okay, it happens sometimes, but just to be aware that when we go through these processes, you really should have that, otherwise it seems like perhaps it was a done deal. Maybe it was. Ms. Borowski, by the way, you are Ms. Borowski, not Mr. Clark. You may want to switch those
We didn't switch.
placards in a little bit. First of all, congratulations in becoming president within the first 5 minutes of you being sworn in. It's sort of interesting that it transpired that quickly, but I would like to say that I am pleased to see that there is bipartisanship at this point in terms of leadership. Last time that we had bipartisan leadership on the board, somewhat regretfully, it did not work out very well for the president, through no fault of the vice president at the time. Hopefully now, especially with a board that is split 3-3, at least in terms of political party affiliation, this demonstrates a commitment of the board moving forward to have that type of, we'll say, collective approach to governance in Radnor Township. We'll also see how long that lasts because, as everyone in the audience can see, Mr. Farr appears to be having some problems with his computer over there. It's okay. Recent problems with his computer, I guess I should state. There's also, there's nobody in the first ward seat. Presumably that will be addressed later tonight. I see that there is a vacancy chair appointment that's going to be looked at. I'd like to say this, though, in terms of putting people onto this board who were not elected by Radnor Town. You okay there, Mr. Farr? All right. When you approach this vacancy chair, I'd like you, at least everybody up on this board was present when they watched how that last vacancy board process played out in terms of how Mr. Lowy, Tom Lowy, the previous vacancy board chair, approached his role and what he said in terms of the due diligence that he felt he performed, which consisted of speaking to people in parking lots as well as meeting people in bars. I was actually present when he had one of those presentations, information gathering in a bar, where he committed to make the information that he learned public and then never did. Whenever this board actually delegates an important vote, as it has via its charter and code, to a vacancy board chair, I think you owe it to members of the public to be very careful about who you put in there and the due diligence that you all do in terms of giving that person a vote. Because once they're in there, there's very little you can do. So hopefully tonight, when you approach that issue of vacancy board chair, you take it seriously and you understand the personalities and biographies of the people involved, and hopefully we can avoid some of the problems that happened last time around, because it doesn't do the interim commissioner any favors if the public believes that the process involved was problematic. So thank you, and again, congratulations, Ms. Borowski, and Mr. Clark, you've been in leadership before. I'm sure you'll continue to do an excellent job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. Any other public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I would like to call the vote on the nomination of Commissioner Clark for Vice President. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. And that passes 6-0. So
Yep.
that's good.
Oops. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
So before we move on to the next appointment that we have, the appointment of our Township Solicitor, I would just like to say I look forward to working with you, Luke. This is a bipartisan leadership. It is what I believe to be an equal partnership here. And we've talked about some things we'd like to do with some changes we'd like to make within the board and the way we do some of our processes and things like that. And I look forward to working with that on you and also your guidance, because as Mr. Sherry pointed out, I've really been here for 5 minutes. So, and I look forward to that.
It's
your
okay.
help.
You just have to bring good judgment to it, and I think you do that, and I think we'll work well together on it, and I think we'll come up with some bipartisan solutions for the board in order to make this a better board, and I think 2018 will be a very good year for the township. So I look forward to working with you, too.
Okay. The next up we have is the appointment of the Township Solicitor. And may I have a motion or nominations for Township Solicitor?
Move we appoint John Rice and Grimby and Thatcher as our township attorney, township solicitor.
Okay, a nomination for Mr. Rice. Do I have any seconds?
Go ahead.
Second.
Yes, Sean, just make sure to hit the mic.
I second.
Excellent. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any commissioner comment?
I don't think there are any other nominations.
Oh, I'm
Doesn't seem
sorry.
like there.
Any
It's
other
okay.
nominations? Okay, commissioner comment? Staff comment? All right, public comment.
Hi, this sort of goes into what I was going to
I'm sorry.
talk. Hi, Leslie Morgan, Farm Road. Because we have a new board assembled tonight after many years of contention, and we've gone through the removal of an acting president and the removal of certain accolades or plaques of a past president, I was thinking over break about some of the things that a new board might enjoin and be bipartisan and work towards. And one of the things that kept going through my mind was a whole charter review, because as everybody in this township and even surrounding townships, and maybe even around the world, because it was in the Daily Mail twice, both of those cases, why couldn't we remove somebody who was indicted? I kept thinking. I mean, it's conduct unbecoming. People are getting thrown out of colleges and high schools and grammar schools and elementary schools for far less. We do remember the little kid who had a sandwich in the shape of a gun and he got expelled from school. But we couldn't remove the board president for conduct unbecoming. And so I said, well, you know, there's other parts of the charter that have caused snafus or snags. And so then I thought deeper about some of the things that maybe, you know, why do people like me come to a board meeting? We want it more efficient, government to be more efficient. We want you to spend less dollars of our taxpayers' money for better outcomes. And so one of the things, when you brought up the solicitation of the legal counsel, and there was no other firm brought forth. And I said, well, geez, you know, I ran a pretty small business I think it topped out at maybe 375 employees, and we bid things all the time out. And we never would have not bid a legal counsel, because I know that John Rice's firm makes a lot of money off the taxpayer dollars. And then I thought, well, I don't want to, I'm not pointing you out, John. I'm thinking about when is the last time we bid that out? I think it was 7 or 8 years ago or 5 years ago. And I think that including of the Home Rule Charter Review book, we should look at a statutory or whatever you would call it, that we should have to bid this stuff out, if not annually, every 18 months to 2 years, to check ourselves so that you're getting, again, more efficient outcomes with each dollar of our taxpaying money. And I hope that the new board would be, open to something like that. I guess we didn't do it this year because we have no other, I know it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of a line item. And I think most people in this township would say, well, we review our bills. And, there are families in this township that switch between cable and FiOS every year and things like that. So come on. The accounting, engineering, I think that we need to check ourselves. We may retain the same people, but I think you should be bidding it out. I think anything that you spend more than $15,000 a year, you should bid out annually. And I'd like to hear from the new one, commissioners, especially, and I think your constituents would like to, because I know that Commissioner Fari had some really good ideas about pilot and in helping Bob get that through. I know that a lot of people would like to see that through, and that was music to my ears. So, those were some of my sort of annual comments on, best practices. How do we, as a new board, do more intentional and strategic best practices that go farther down than instead of just making our balance sheet look pretty in a PDF, and that's great. And we have run surpluses, and that's great. But I think that there's always ways to save money and be more efficient with our outcomes. And then the third leg, and it's a little off balance sheet here because I know you want to vote John in. But the thing is, in what is the township's business? Is it mostly for safety and increasing our residential values? I think it is, and making our roads, be paved and plowed. And when we come to vanity projects, which, hey, listen, I'm all for the Willows. I think the Willows should have been done a decade ago, okay? But I think that in that home rule charter or whatever, wherever it should be printed, there are other townships that say, if you're going to buy something with public money, you have to put forth a certain percentage of private money. And I think, Lisa, you'll be great with that because you've raised private money. And you know that balance of private and public before a project can go forth. So we don't waste a lot of time. And things that, like the senior center, which for 10 years have had plans to expand, has always been in the back of the bus. So maybe you can get fine-tuned, the new board, if you're going to work together and come up with some bigger, more efficient outcomes. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Leslie. Any other public comment?
Yep, Patty Booker, Belle Rosaline. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Patty.
And others. As you know, having served on the school board, and I had not intended to comment tonight, but as Leslie was speaking, it really did bring to mind. On the school board, part of the Finance Committee's responsibility is to establish a request for quote schedule that we do every 3 to 5 years, depends on the services, of all the services that the school district purchases externally, whether it's our solicitor or whether it's contractors for outside services, anything that we end up doing, over a certain value, to Leslie's point. I would ideally like to see that as a taxpayer in this community. I'd love to see, I know you guys just approved your budget, you're moving into your fiscal year now, but maybe for next year's budget cycle, it would be really helpful if you guys would consider putting together a schedule of requests for quotes that you would put out so that we can see what the district is, what the township is paying in terms of the services now with the contractors of the services that we use, and what's out there in terms of the market value. I'm not sure what we pay our solicitor. I know within the school district, our fees for our solicitor are intermingled in many, many different line items. It's very difficult to look at a budget and just pull out of that exactly what we're paying our solicitor. I don't know that's the same with the township. I don't know your budget in depth. But I would like to see that as a taxpayer in this community, that you guys consider putting together a schedule for services and really go through a real quoting process. I have no particular preference on any individual. I have not had any interaction with Mr. Rice personally or his firm, so this is not really directed at the solicitor perspective. It's really across the board for all services. I'd appreciate seeing that. Thanks.
Thank you, Patty.
It's Dan Sherry Wayne. Just to be clear with my comments, I wouldn't care if you were paying John Rice one nickel every single year, or whether John Rice was actually paying this township out of his own pocket $500,000 a year just for the pleasure of representing this township. John Rice has been solicitor in Radnor Township for at least 7 years at this point, and yet only 4 weeks ago, John Rice quite literally could not represent to the public where Radnor was on a map vis-a-vis King of Prussia, okay, for an issue that came before this board, which required geographic proximity to be known. That's only the most recent of a long line of demonstrable missteps by the solicitor. Let's just go back in the past calendar year. Okay, John Rice publicly announced that Elaine Paul Schaefer, your predecessor, Ms. Borowski, who was the subject of an ethics investigation, could vote on the identity of counsel advising the ethics board in their investigation of her. Is that somebody that you really want to trust the solicitor position to in Radnor Township for another year? Remember, we all pay John Rice. We all do. But that's only part of the issue. It's performance. Okay? I first became acquainted with John Rice when he took the position that this township could enter into a confidential, wasn't disclosed how much, monetary settlement with the vestiges of Lehman Brothers. It wasn't until my brother and I brought a right-to-know request and then had to appeal it that we found out it was multi-million dollars. You can still read the scathing OOR opinion regarding that. Okay? That takes somebody with, I don't know, 15 minutes of Google experience to know that you can't have that type of confidential settlement. Okay? Something else involving your predecessor, Ms. Borowski. John Rice never interceded when she was voting on issues involving the North Wayne Field. Again, it took a right-to-know request from my brother and me to bring up the fact that Schaefer's husband was a paid softball coach for the Radnor Township School District and also sold to Radnor Township School District. Why isn't the solicitor bringing things like this up? Okay. When John Nagel yelled that I should be shot in a meeting, John Rice never denied not witnessing it. How could he? He was only 5 feet away from Nagel, and yet advised the ethics board in its investigation of Nagel, counsel and potential witness. Ultimately, this board is going to need to demonstrate what it will take before they finally say, your position in Radnor Township is not guaranteed and granted. The only thing I can, I guess, analogize to it happened about 5 months ago. Okay? And that was when Commissioner Booker brought a resolution before this board that I thought had to pass unanimously. It just had to pass unanimously. And that was after Bill Spengler was convicted of multiple indecent attacks on a 103-year-old with a mental disability, something that brought this township international scrutiny. Okay? And all Commissioner Booker wanted to do was rescind township awards for Bill Spengler. Didn't pass unanimously. Passed 4-2. The disgusting criminal pervert, Phil R., actually voted in favor of passage. But I said then at that meeting that if this board didn't pass it, if people like Higgins and Schaefer, who voted against it, were to be believed, okay, I see your red light turning on. It's only take another 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Okay. That we don't want to create precedents in Radnor where what we do can never be evaluated again. Mr. Rice has had long enough to prove himself capable of representing this township. Okay? When somebody is capable, rare is the circumstance that the evidence will point otherwise. With John Rice, in my opinion, he reliably demonstrates that he should not be entrusted with representing this township in legal matters, conducting as parliamentarian at meetings, or at least in tangential part, helping safeguard the reputation of Radnor Township. This board, which now has new members on it, and will soon have a new member in terms of the first ward, has the ability to have a fresh start. Why not now? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherry. Any additional public comment? Hi, how are you?
Kelly Martin, Rosemont. My issue, a few weeks ago, this board voted about the tow truck drivers, that they had to every 2 years resubmit proposals to tow in Radnor. Yet with the solicitor, I think it's 7 or 8 years now that he's been here, and it's not been sent out. There have been no requests for proposals, which kind of seems it would be a bigger deal who's representing us legally versus who's towing the cars in our township. So that seems like an odd thing that we wouldn't also send that out for proposal on a regular basis. A few months ago, there was a vote here about whether no, it wasn't a vote, sorry. There was a confidential document that was slipped into an ethics filing. And this board gave John Rice 30 days to get back to the people about where it came from, which obviously the dollar signs, like dollars are adding up every time. We don't have an answer to that yet. I've not heard anything on that. I don't know when we're expecting an answer on how that document was slipped into the ethics complaint. But I'm definitely concerned, and I definitely think that this board, it's your responsibility to at least send that out for bid to see if the representation that we have is in our best interest. And lastly, during the PLO vote recently, Elaine Paul Schaefer voted in favor of the PLO. And it was under advice of John Rice, who stated that she was able to vote on it because it was Penn Medicine. The property is owned by the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania. Ms. Schaefer's company is employed or does business with the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania. The document where John Rice gave her permission to vote on that was never released. It was requested, it was never released, which is really odd because the vote won 5-0, the PLO. So obviously, 5-1. There was clearly something a little bit shady about that vote, and it doesn't make any sense that she was fighting tooth and nail to be able to cast that vote. And I would think each of you would disagree with someone's ability, if they're getting income from the University of Pennsylvania, that they should be able to vote for the University of Pennsylvania property to change the zoning laws in Radnor. And so I question all of those things, and I think that you should all be questioning them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the vote to reappoint John Rice as solicitor for Radnor Township. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, vote passes 5-1.
With Commissioner Booker
Oh,
opposed.
yes, thank you. Okay, and now we need to appoint the township secretary and the assistant secretary. So first, I will open nominations for the appointment of the township secretary.
And I'll nominate Robert Zinkowski, Township Secretary, with Bill White designated as Assistant Secretary.
Excellent.
Second.
Second. Great. Do I have any other nominations? Okay, seeing none. Is there any commissioner comment? Any staff comment? Any public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote for the appointment of Bob Zinkowski as Township Secretary and Bill White as Assistant Secretary. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, vote passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, next, item 12, the appointments to chair and members of the standing committee. We are going to...
Yeah, I'm going to move to table this. We need some more time to go through who's going to be on the standing committees. It's something that I would like to table. I'll move the table until January 8th.
Second.
Okay, excellent. So I have a motion, and is there any comment, commissioner comment? Staff comment? Public comment? Okay, seeing none. I will call the vote. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry, Leslie.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
There's a bunch behind me, I think.
Okay.
Could you, for the edification of the people watching tonight, sort of talk at fifth grade level on what that means, the appointment of standing committees, so that people, that's all?
Sure.
Sure.
Oh,
So, yeah, sorry about that. We have subcommittees on our board. They're made up of 3 members of our board, except for the Finance Committee, which is all of us. Okay, we have Parks and Rec, we have Open Space, we have Public Safety. These are the subcommittees. We are hoping to utilize them more this year, so we want to take just a little more time to make sure that we get the right members on the right committees there for these meetings that we're hoping to have.
And I think the intent is to try to get that on the agenda for next Monday. But we just want to have an opportunity to talk to all the commissioners and find out where everyone would like to be. Welcome.
Welcome. Chip Layfield, Wayne. I noticed that Bud Hirsch's name was down for an alternate for zoning hearing board. I'd ask that that be struck. I noticed this last political cycle, he appeared in a political campaign ad for Elaine. I just think, we're starting out bipartisan. It'd be good just to push that obvious political personality off the board. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's not this agenda.
Yeah, but that's next. Okay. Okay, John.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any additional public comment? Okay. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor to table the appointments of chair, members of standing committees, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. That passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, next is the reappointments to advisory boards and commissions.
Okay, so I'm going to move the table this as well. We have an appointment to, for instance, we have an appointment to the Ethics Board, and we currently have an investigation still ongoing with the Ethics Board. We are going to, I'm going to move to table this till January 8th to give us some time to take a look into this and talk about this. There are no boards that meet in the interim that would need any of these members, so no one will be prejudiced by it. So again, I will move the table. Reappointments to advisory boards and commissions to January 8th.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table the appointments to the advisory boards and commissions. Do I have any commissioner comment?
Can we get an update on the ethics investigation with Exhibit 6? Where that stands?
I can provide that to the board in executive session. The board has a written report from me, Commissioner Abel, which will be provided to you now that you've assumed office, and then we can discuss that, what the update is on that.
So if we're not able to get some sort of clarification and resolve the issue by the 8th, I would recommend we pull any appointments to the Ethics Board out there. I don't feel comfortable moving forward on the Ethics Board while this investigation hangs above us.
Okay, and I think that that's an appropriate conversation for us to have in executive session, and I think we can ask Mr. Rice to be able to brief us on that on Monday, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to appoint in public, so there's going to be a
Right.
discussion.
There'll be a
And it's gonna be
discussion.
in public, too, so.
I mean, we also made some recommendations to the board in writing. That's something with new board members. I think the 6 of you and, when there's 7 of you, need to look at that and also look at the future of the Ethics Board. I mean, that's part of it. It
And
needs to be discussed.
And considering at this point that, Commissioner Abel and I have not been privy to that information, I think that we do need the opportunity to see that and to digest it and evaluate it, so. Is there any staff comment with regards to the motion on the floor? All right, any public comment?
Dan Sherry, Wayne. Whenever the solicitor, Commissioner Abel, from now on tosses back to you the issue of executive session, I recommend this to everybody up on the board, to say, on what basis is that private? Okay? Maybe he'll say to you, well, it's a non-criminal investigation that's still ongoing, but make that clear. It's very, very convenient to go into private and have a little discussion behind closed doors. Okay? It's important, however, that the public, especially with a character like John Rice, see that work product and hear about it as to what's going on. Ms. Martin made a really good point that this board specifically gave John Rice 30 days to conduct the investigation. 30 days comes back, and what does John Rice say? We all know. It's on videotape. He goes, oh, that was arbitrary. Arbitrary 30-day investigation in terms of that amount of time. Okay. Push back on that. Perfectly fine to push back on that. Where do we stand with that? Okay. Commissioner Clark is quite correct. Until you have some resolution as to how that Exhibit 6 got into Doug McCone's possession, and again, I don't understand why it's taken this long. You certainly shouldn't put anybody on that ethics board at all. Okay? Again, it literally should not take any more than, Mr. McCone, you're in possession of information that certainly appears to be something that you didn't create and would be considered township property. Writ of summons. Okay? Certainly prima facie claim at this point that there's conversion on the part of Mr. McCone unless somebody gave it to him. Okay? Pre-complaint discovery. Mr. McCone, hand up. Swear. How did you get that document? If he invokes Fifth Amendment right, okay, which is don't want to be held a witness against myself in criminal proceedings, very good, turn it over to the DA's office. Otherwise, you're going to get your answer. And then you're going to know about the ethics board, whether or not the ethics board was complicit in it or had practices that allowed that to be leaked, or whether they did it voluntarily, or whether somebody else interceded. Who knows? But it's not hard to conduct this investigation. You know who ended up with the property. McCone and Beaudry. Authorize a writ of summons against McCone, okay? Make him tell you how he got it. Or we want to wait another 30 days or 120 days? Who knows? In the interim, I wouldn't recommend that you have the ethics board do anything, let alone reconstitute its membership or reappoint or bring in new people. They've shown themselves to be unworthy. Thanks.
Can we get a writ of summons? Can we do that? Do we need to vote to that? We haven't talked to these McCone and Beaudry, have you, on this?
So, okay, John.
Yeah.
Commissioner Booker, we are voting right now on the appointments of the advisory boards and commissions. I would ask that you at least allow Commissioner Abel and I the opportunity to see the information that has already been presented that 4 of you have, that Commissioner Abel and I do not have. I've seen nothing. I have no information. I can't vote on anything with regards to that this evening. So I would ask that we at least have the opportunity to review that and either have, discussion on what that is, if it's appropriate for executive session or it's appropriate for public. I'm not exactly sure because I don't know what it is. So if we could wait, I would appreciate that. So we are going to be tabling this, advisory boards and commissions appointments. I hear what you're saying, and I hear what the public has said to us as well with some other concerns. So those are things I'd like to bring up and have us consider, and we'll decide if that, Commissioner Clark and I will decide if that's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting or not. Is that acceptable? Is that good?
Can always be on a future agenda.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
get on.
I seconded the motion.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
right.
Any other public comment?
great. Any other public comment?
Chip Layfield, Wayne, I want to assert my comments in the proper part here about Bud Hirsch again. I've known Bud a long time. I introduced him to Elaine when she was running for office. I was very disappointed that he appeared in that campaign material when she was running. I thought it was totally inappropriate. I don't think this board needs to start out the new year by appointing a political operative or political pawn, whatever it is, I don't know. But I think you should get some other people for that quasi-judicial. That's a very important position. And as far as the ethics board goes, I go back quite a few years, and it was John Rice's novel interpretation of the rules that govern the ethics board that have really turned it into a real joke. It's really become a joke. And doing away with it seems to make sense. I hope you would give that some consideration. You always have the state to fall back on. Another option would be to bring ethics charges against the ethics board itself, because clearly they are the ones that leaked the confidential information. I would be curious to see how that chimp chase would go, trying to figure out who's going to investigate who. But it's really turned into a circus, and I think it needs to be addressed seriously, because I think Rich's reputation's been totally besmirched. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Layfield. Any additional public comment?
As as far as the ethics of investigation.
You state your name.
Hi, Kelly Martin, Rosemont. Either there's an employee of the township that leaked the document, an elected official or an appointed official who leaked the document, and it's the public's right to know who did that. And I do think you need to ask for that report to be made public. I think it was October that the 30-day date was given. And in November, we all asked about it, and we were told that it was arbitrary. And in December, we asked about it, and there was just no response given. And here we are in January, and we're hearing there is a report, 4 of you have it, and we're not allowed to see it. I'm not sure what you're protecting us from, but obviously that needs to be released, because when we're voting, or when we're supporting people, or when we're paying people in the township, we should know that they're violating confidentiality. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
I think that since some of the board members are temporary, and there may be a second temporary one, I think it's always good for the people watching at home to know where you stand, and the new members as well. So maybe on January 8th, after you've both briefed yourselves, and maybe Commissioner Farr, you could talk to the public in just general terms on, is this important, do you think? That if you do have an ethics panel, should it work efficiently? And I think it should. And it doesn't seem that it's a good idea to have an ethics board, but why does it seem to be so inelegant in Radnor Township with so many smart people and so contentious? And so, I don't think it should be weaponized between parties. I agree on that. But I do think that this is a pretty easy fact pattern. There was a document. It was supposed to be secure. It wasn't. And that's plain and simple to people who have attended meetings. And I would like to know how Commissioner Abel feels about that. Commissioner Borowski, Commissioner Farr, I would like to know that. I think the public not only should see the report, but I also think that the general public needs to know what you're thinking. You don't have to answer me tonight. You don't have to answer the public, but I think you're here answering to the public. You should give us your opinions, your heartfelt opinions. I would like to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to table the appointments of, the reappointments of the advisory boards and commissions. Can I have a vote, please? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So the motion passes 5-1.
Commissioner Nagel opposed.
Yes, thank you. I'll learn. I'll get it. Okay, the next one is item 14, appointments to boards and commissions.
So I'd like to do the same thing with this one here. We have an interview on January 8th with someone who's interested in a couple of the boards. None of these boards are meeting this week, so they are not in any disadvantage. No one's prejudiced by it, so I would like to table this one as well to January 8th, and that way we can take care of all of these appointments and reappointments on January 8th and giving us time to analyze all the information and not everyone. So I'll move the table to January 8th.
Second.
Second, okay. Do I have any commissioner comment with regards to that? I would just like to say personally, I appreciate that. I have not had the opportunity to review the names, or I know you guys had the opportunity to interview some of these candidates who I, commend the people from the public who are stepping up to fill the spots on these committees. We need more people to get involved, but I would appreciate the opportunity to see their resumes and understand who we're looking at before we do that. I like to know what I'm voting on. So, any other additional commissioner comment? Any staff comment?
Madam President?
Yes.
I would ask if you would consider moving that back to the second meeting of January, just because I think 3 of you haven't even interviewed a number of the candidates. I know it may be tough to bring candidates back, but to at least have the opportunity of those that the previous board had an opportunity to interview, just to re-interview those folks, because you may just be looking at a piece of paper, and I think the opportunity for you is to re-interview those people would be fair, I think, to those candidates, as well as the new candidates too, as well, to re-interview all of those. as well, and give you at least a little bit of time for making those decisions. Because one of the things that are coming up is getting members to attend meetings. I know it's been problematic here recently of getting a quorum. So I think something as a criteria to at least have you have the opportunity to interview everybody and give you a little bit of time for that. That'd just be a suggestion to the board.
Okay.
All right, I'll amend my motion then to table item 14, appointments to boards and commissions, to January 22nd.
Second.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. I think I probably speak for Commissioner Farhi and Commissioner Abel and say that we would appreciate getting to know who these people who've made these applications, if that's possible, prior to that meeting. So, all right, so any public comment? Did I already call for that? Okay. Welcome.
Hello, Susan Stern, Wayne. Congratulations to Ms. Borowski, Mr. Abel, Mr. Farhi, welcome. And congratulations on being president, Madam President, and Mr. Vice President. In reading your agenda tonight, and in looking at the board and noticing that tonight half of the board is brand new, and when you appoint an interim commissioner to Ward 1, a majority of the board will be brand new. And that's a daunting prospect, but it's also really a phenomenal opportunity for this board to take a step forward and rethink how you would like to do business here in Radnor. I've come before this board in the past to say it has troubled me to see the length of your meetings, the tone of the meetings. I say that on behalf of your employees. Among your fiduciary responsibilities is to hire the best staff you can and to be efficient. And meetings that go on until midnight or 12 o'clock 1 o'clock in the morning, not only are they not efficient for you and they impact your lives and your families, but it really does not set a great tone as an employer of the township. And it's, for me, it just feels very unfair to your employees. So I have a few suggestions that I would ask you to consider genuinely, and they are said really with a desire and a hope for this board to be able to move forward for the best of the township. The first is the whole concept of public comment. And please keep track of my time. I will speed up here. It's interesting to me, and I know this is an unusual agenda tonight, but for all the various agenda items that you have here, there isn't actually a general public comment, which is the reason I'm saying this now. And maybe that's not how a typical agenda works, but when I think about efficiency, I don't think your public comment structure as it currently exists is the best structure for the agendas. So I hope that you give that some thought. The other thing that I'm about to say, I say with some trepidation. In walking the township this fall, campaigning for school board, it was interesting to me that I actually heard more concerns shared about the Board of Commissioners, about the tone of your meetings. And what was mentioned to me most of all is that there is a member of the public who speaks frequently here, who has intimidates other members of the public from coming forward to speak. People are afraid to come and speak at a Radnor Township Board of Commissioners meeting because if they say something that is displeasing to this person, they are afraid they will be attacked, ridiculed, harassed, intimidated. And I would ask you all to strongly consider if that continuing in this way where one member of the public is able to monopolize public comment and has other members of the public feel intimidated. And I say this knowing I may now become a target. I hope that's not the case. I hope that just in asking you to consider not allowing public comment that intimidates other members of our community from even coming to a meeting.
A minute.
Yep, got it. That you really rethink that. Really rethink how that works. The other request I would make is for commissioners to not tweet during the meeting. It's a business meeting. And to tweet during the meeting and to retweet people's comments during the meeting is, for me, it says that you're not fully present here. I know that we all have busy lives, but and I'm not going to single anyone out, I'm just mentioning these things, and I strongly urge you all to listen to Mrs. Borowski's experience of how the structure and the true work of a committee can help this board be more efficient. And I guess I would finally say that in asking the public to also be efficient, to prioritize what you want to say and find a way to say it in the time limit so that the entire township can benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Cherry, Wayne, and I'm here to speak on behalf of all the taxpayers of Radnor Township and all of the attorneys of Radnor Township and all of the employees of Radnor Township and all of the school children of Radnor Township and all of the pets of Radnor Township and anybody that may have ever once wandered into Radnor Township. Am I impressing you all with that type of preemptive comment? Let me try this perhaps another way. There are a number of people I've talked to, they are helpfully unnamed, and they have raised some concerns to me about somebody who I'm not going to name by name.
Mr.
And
Sherry,
they've given me
is this a comment?
suggestions.
Is this a comment regarding the motion that's on the floor?
Yes, and they've given me some suggestions that I won't necessarily spell out for you, but they would like it to be known that they're feeling threatened and/or intimidated because somebody who, again, who is not named, comes to this lectern and somehow monopolizes it, despite the fact that his or her microphone can be cut off at any time, and there's Robert's Rules of Order. But it's important to know that people out there who are unnamed have opinions, and they should be respected, and they should be encouraged to come to meetings, do with whatever you will. For a couple of other points, though, that appear to be more related to this issue of tabling in terms of these boards. Ms. Borowski, you were previously a member of the Radnor School Board. You understand the importance of getting up to speed once it became known to you that you were commissioner-elect. Hopefully, you will take the time to learn the business of this board so that there will not be the need for fellow board members to push items down the road. It's important to be able to get up to speed, but that's kind of the business of being a commissioner, doing the due diligence prior to meetings. And if you don't have the information, proactively going to the township and getting that information. Now, that's not to say that you should be aware of things that you couldn't be aware of. I just learned tonight, apparently there's a report about presumably Exhibit 6. Okay, maybe John Rice has determined that.
Mr. Sherry, is your comment regarding the motion that's on the floor?
Was Ms. Stern, your former prior board member's comment about that?
I believe it was.
It was,
Could you,
really? Because
okay.
I heard a lot of stuff
Mr.
about
Sherry,
other things.
you have
just
Mr. Sherry.
All right, let's.
Come on.
Yeah, come on.
We just
It's
have
important to
listen.
Let's.
Yeah, correct. I mean, again, it's important to be consistent. It really is in terms of that. So yes, just in terms of this is relating the motion at hand. Remember, the reason why this motion, rather the topic of it, has come about and is going to be pushed not merely to the next meeting, but the meeting thereafter, at least part of the reason is that certain board members need to get up to speed. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Be proactive. Find out about that. Again, the example I just used about John Rice and report, that might be something you had no idea about. That doesn't really speak well, though, to John Rice. I would think that as soon as you took the board, you know how significant Exhibit 6 was during this fall, okay? The fact that John Rice didn't bring you, or perhaps Mr. Abel, anybody else up to speed, that there's a report.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Sherry.
I bet, okay? That is important for you to know going forward, especially now as board president, so that you have the ability at meetings to make informed decisions, and that you don't have to push items back. With the understanding that tonight gives a bit of a specific exception, Mr. Clark wisely pointed out that there are some concerns, at least with certain boards, that dictate that in addition to conducting due diligence, certain other facts and circumstances need to play out. And on behalf of everybody who has ever been in Radnor Township since its creation, I thank you, Ms. Borowski.
Thank you, Mr. Sherry. All right. Is there any additional public comment? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to table the appointments to the boards and commissions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0. All right, next up, we have the appointment of the Vacancy Board Chairperson. We will be in need of such a person, perhaps at some point. I'm taking nominations. I know we do have.
that we appoint David Falcone to the position.
Okay, right, do I
I'll
have a
second it.
second?
Second.
Okay.
And if I can make a comment, the Vacancy Board, we intend on the 8th to set forth some parameters for the Vacancy Board in terms of how that process is going to work, okay? So that we don't have any issues. We'll just leave it at that. So we are going to set forth a process. We, as well as the Vacancy Board chairperson, whoever that may be, we are the Vacancy Board, the 7 of us. So we intend to establish a process for that to make it orderly and to make it as well received by the public as possible.
So we have a motion on the floor for Dave Falcone to fulfill the seat as Vacancy Board. Is there any additional commissioner comment?
Or any additional nominations?
Oh, sorry, any additional nominations? All right. Any staff comment? Any public comment?
Kelly Martin Rosemont. Dave Falcone represents Penn in the recent PLO, which is going to be coming through here. I think that's a huge conflict of interest to appoint him as the vacancy chair, that he'll be the tiebreaker when you're choosing who's going to temporarily represent Ward 1. We had a huge issue in the last vacancy chair, somebody stealing our time, asking us to come out and share our concerns with our ward, and then just completely, burning the papers and not telling us what any of it had to do with the way he was selecting the candidate. So I would ask that Dave Falcone not be, he did a great job on school board, and I mean, I know he really contributes to the township, but as the vacancy chair, I think that would be problematic. And I also wondered, does he live in the first ward? He does not. Okay. Oh, right. I understand.
The vacancy board chair does not have to live in the ward.
I understand that. I just think with the matters at hand right now in the township, that's a huge conflict of interest. Thank you.
Chip Layfield again, Wayne, and I would like to chime in and agree with that. I think of all the people in this township, to pull Dave Falcone after such a series of contentious, really disrespectful meetings on his part, often. I think that to bring him in as a vacancy judge to appoint the commissioner that could actually decide the land use development of that Penn site was ill-considered and wrong. And I'm sorry to see that's the direction you're going.
Okay.
Dan Sherry Wayne, yeah, not to be repetitious, but yeah, I mean, why do you want Falcone? And also, I mean, look, this is just as an aside. It's nothing personal, but with Lane Paul Schaefer, when she ran and lost for state rep, and then, you know, after, of course, she would have won, she would have left this in terms of being a commissioner in Radnor Township, to then be given basically as a victory lap, being made president of the Radnor Board of Commissioners. I thought was a bad move. Dave Falcone just lost in his campaign for Radnor School Board. Okay, the voters heard him, including voters in the first ward, and they rejected him. You can come back after that. You can. But you really should be running again. And Ms. Borowski, you're a demonstration of that. You lost with the Radnor School Board, but you know what? You didn't get depressed. You came back and you ran a really spirited, effective campaign in the 4th Ward. And I mean that. I have family members in the 4th Ward, and they were impressed with your door-to-door campaigning, and that you put yourself out there on issues, okay? This township has had Dave Falcone for 4 years as a school board director, okay? They've seen a whole lot of him at Radnor Board of Commissioners meetings advocating on behalf of Penn, trustees of the University of Pennsylvania, just to be precise, as Ms. Martin spoke to earlier tonight. We don't need Dave Falcone to now be playing kingmaker or queenmaker in terms of the 1st Ward, a ward where he doesn't live, where I don't live, okay? The vacancy board only convenes for one reason, if you have a vacancy. And Jim Higgins resigned, somewhat surprisingly, at the last Board of Commissioners meeting, and now he got a vacancy in the 1st Ward, okay? Why not go with somebody who's not seen as political in terms of this? Okay, I had major issues with the way Mr. Lowy conducted himself. Ms. Martin alluded to a number of things. I was at that bar meeting. Why not go? But one of the criticisms I wouldn't have involving Mr. Lowy is he did not seem to be overtly political. He seemed to be careless, not very effective, not very studious in terms of how he went about his task, but I wouldn't call him a political operative. That's not the same thing when it comes to Mr. Falcone. And I would think that because, again, this is interim, okay, this is no substitute for first ward voters, okay? It's going to be somebody interim. Why not have, assuming you're going to need a tiebreaker, somebody who's not seen, again, as a political operative. And the last thing I would point out is you're only going to need this person's vote if you all can't come to a determination as to who that first ward candidate should be. Vacancy board only steps in if you all deadlock. Okay, and tonight we showed that you don't necessarily deadlock. We have Democrat for president and a Republican for vice president. So you can do it. But to the extent you can't do it, perhaps maybe we pick somebody who doesn't have the, how to put this diplomatically, history that Mr. Falcone has with this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to appoint Mr. Falcone as the vacancy board. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-1. All right.
Move we adjourn.
Okay. Do I
I'll
have a
second
second? All right, thank you very much, and